Welcome, everybody, to your Healthy Self podcast. This is your host, Cade Archibald, and so excited to be here with everyone this beautiful Thursday morning. And we got our OG founder of Anodyne Pain and Wellness and Go Wellness, Regan Archibald. Regan, how's it going?
Really good. Yeah, I'm ready for today. We got some fun things to talk about that is fitting for 110-degree weather.
Nice. Is that how hot it is up in Salt Lake today?
Oh, I was referring to St. George. Salt Lake,
Okay.
we were 107 a few days ago, which was a record breaker, but it's cooled off now down to about 100.
Nice. Well, we're roasting down here. We're for Father's Day weekend. We're trying to get to Lake Powell, but with the kids and everything, it's just going to be so blazing hot. I don't know what we're going to do. So, the heat is definitely. So I'm really intrigued and excited about the topic today. So before we jump in, though, I want to talk about last night we had our hack, our Health
Yeah.
Accelerator program. So for those of you that aren't registered for that, go to acueastwest.com/hack, HAC, stands for Health Accelerator course. But we we're going through the fat burning challenge, 100-day fat burning challenge right now, and it's been going really good. Our challenge the previous week was hydration, so hopefully everyone on this got really hydrated, used some good electrolytes. That'll help in the 100-degree heat. And then challenge from this week is man, my mind just went blank. What's the challenge, Reagan?
Well, this is time restricted eating.
Oh yes, I haven't eaten this morning.
Yes.
I you got to cut your window down. So
Right.
yes, time restricted eating. Awesome. So you guys can all participate with us. Cut your window hour of eating between 8 to 10 hours. If you're trying to cut down, lose some weight, 8 hours is ideal. Just for healthy digestion and giving your body a reset. 10 to 12 hours of a eating window is ideal.
Yes.
Nice. So let's dive in. I don't think we have any other announcements, so let's get rocking here.
Okay, so today we're going to be covering some things that hopefully you guys will find interesting. What we've decided is there's a big crisis going on, and the big crisis is we've got this opiate crisis, and it's actually gotten so much worse in the last year. We don't even have all the data, but the use of opiates has increased at least by 22% according to some research. And so what we're going to cover today is we're going to cover how to handle pain in a natural way, because we are on a mission to get people off opiates, to end this crisis, to get people out of pain, and to end chronic disease for 1 million people by 2025. And so I want to, first of all, thank everyone who's involved in this community, because you guys are keeping yourself healthy. You're keeping yourself out of the doctor's office, getting prescriptions. You're doing your best to avoid the surgeries. And so I just want to thank each one of you. But today we're going to talk about this major topic of how to resolve pain. And we're going to talk about hydration and how hydration relates to it, and then blood sugar. So timed eating is where, that's one of the tools we use to regulate blood sugar. But what a lot of people don't realize is this pain epidemic is driven by the diabetes epidemic. So Cade, this is going to be maybe even news to you, but would you say diabetes is a big problem in our society right now, blood sugar
Oh
issues?
yeah, absolutely.
And have you ever thought that having increased levels of like blood glucose, for example, could trigger pain?
Yeah, just because sugar, those glucose levels will increase inflammation in the body.
There you go. Yeah, and so there's a couple different things that we're going to cover today, but right now, why don't you guys all just plug in the chat box if you've got specific questions when it comes to pain or blood sugar. Feel free to plug those in, and then we're going to give you some real solutions. So by the end of this, everyone should have a great understanding of how to regulate your blood sugar so that you can regulate your pain. And I can tell you, in 50% of the cases, when you have high levels of pain, you can knock out the majority of the pain just by correcting your blood sugar. It's phenomenal. So let's jump into that. So blood sugar, big issue. Diabetes. Right now, if you look at where we've gone from 2011, or we'll start at 2011. I'll go through some stats. 2011, 18.8 million people in the United States were diagnosed with diabetes. 7 million were undiagnosed. So there's a huge percentage of people who have not been diagnosed. And I can tell you, in reading a lot of functional blood chemistry labs, there's a ton of us who are trending towards that. They're on that diabetic road, and we want to stop. We're going to get you on a detour. We do not want you heading towards diabetes. In 2011, diabetes affected 26 million people, and it affected 8.3% of the US population. And these are all statistics from the National Diabetes Fact Sheet. By 2015, 30.3 million people had diabetes, 9.4% of the population. So up a full percentage in just 4 years. Diagnosed were 23.1 million, undiagnosed 7.2 million. And then we go to 2015, not too much longer. 1 in 4 adults are living with diabetes. 7.2 million Americans didn't know they have it. The cost of diabetes is incredible. It's 98 billion in 1997. And now in 2017, that cost is $327 billion. So the cost is not only in healthcare expenses, the 237 billion in healthcare expenses, but 90 billion in reduced productivity. So one of the big concerns is, if we stay on this trend, Robert Ratner, he's the chief scientific and medical officer of the American Diabetes Association. He says it's important to note that while treating diabetes is expensive, it is the fact that the prevalence of this disease is increasing dramatically. Recent estimates project that as many as 1 in 3 American adults will have diabetes in 2050. These numbers are alarming and further highlight the need for our nation to address this epidemic. So diabetes, holy cow, that's pretty scary, isn't it, Cade?
Yeah, that's wild.
It's so wild, and so
Like a third of the population, the adult population, by 2050 is the projection.
that's how we're trending. But all of the projections, if you look back at let's see, the 1800s, and you probably remember this, 1800s, the average American was eating about 10 pounds of sugar a year. And this is just like the purchased sugar that we buy in bags, because that's how the U.S. Department of Agriculture kind of tracks it. Do you have any idea of what the amount is right now?
I know it's a lot. I don't know.
It's 150 pounds a year.
Holy
And
smokes.
and I can tell you, we don't buy sugar. I don't see it at your house. And so there's some people, and I know Ann doesn't. So there's like, well, there could be people literally buying 200 pounds of sugar every single year just to put on in their muffins or whatever they're baking, or sprinkle on your fruit, or however people use it. But this is one of the things that is triggering this pain response. And so it's very interesting, because when you start looking at the amount of diabetes and sugar consumption, like you said, Kate, it triggers this inflammatory response. And when you start turning up that dial on inflammation, then that's where you start getting that missed signal in the brain, missed signal from the nerves, and your body starts to feel that sensation of pain.
Yeah. Well, I
And
know when I don't eat well, like if I go on a bender and eat a bunch of junk food or something, and the next day I'm like achy, sore, just like don't feel good.
crazy, isn't it? Yeah, it's like you can have a sugar hangover, literally. Same mechanism of having an alcohol-induced hangover.
Yeah.
All right. And here's Anne. I love this. So Anne went home once, and she made her family donate or throw out all the flour, sugar, and vegetable oils. They were so happy with me. I bet they,
I bet they were excited about that.
yeah. We could make that a challenge today. Is let's donate all the things that are triggering pain and discomfort and lack of movement. Now I'm going to explain to you the mechanism in just a minute, but and then Michelle said, "Oh, go ahead, kid."
I was just going to say, I like what Michelle said. Maybe this is what's contributing to the excess sugar consumption is we're just feeding more hummingbirds. That's a good theory, right? Let's hope so. Michelle says the only white processed sugar in their house is for the hummingbirds.
Oh, that's awesome. And the hummingbirds are awesome. That's like, I love it when they just come and hover. They're like a helicopter. The way their wings move,
They're
um,
so cool.
coolest birds. Yeah. Yes. Anne says, make a facial or body scrub with your leftover sugar. That's awesome.
Right. That's a great one.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this, one of the things we can do as a community here, we can either, keep the US trending in the direction that we can, or we can be the change that we want to see in the world, just to quote Gandhi, and we can actually start getting rid of the sugar, the refined flours, the vegetable oils, all the things that contribute to in this inflammatory response are going to contribute to pain. And the way that it works is when you eat sugar, there's this process called advanced glycation end products. And so age. So if you think of, hey, I want to get old fast, I don't think I've ever heard any patient come in and say, I just look too damn young. I look in the mirror, I look vibrant, my skin looks great, I don't have any wrinkles. Actually, I do have a friend named Joey, and you know Joey, Cade, and he wanted the furrow brow so he looked more serious. So
Really?
he's a professor, yeah. So so I do have a friend who's a PhD who wanted to have some lines on his face. So I guess I can't say 100%, but I think most of us, we don't want to look like that, right? And Cade knows Joey. He's the most intellectual human being I've ever met. Like,
Does he just like scowl all day so it just really gets ingrained in there?
yeah, I used to joke with him. I'm like, you look happy. Hurry, focus, look focused. Yeah. So, but the problem is, if you think about when you eat sugar, it's enhancing that advanced glycation end products. And so what it is think about the browning of sugar, like the creme brulee. Like I love creme brulee, right? And you light the little torch and you just kind of crisp it. Well, that's what's happening in your blood vessels when you eat sugar. And so those advanced glycation end products, what they do is they lead to more wrinkles, they lead to oxidative stress, and then that leads to clogged arteries, higher levels of cholesterol. And then when your liver can't process all the sugar, it turns it into triglycerides. And then eventually those triglycerides start getting stored in the liver and you have fatty liver disease. And you're like, I don't eat any fat, Reagan. I'm on a fat-free diet. I'm like, well, that's the problem is you're not eating any fat, you're eating all sugar and refined products. And so this is how we get our livers really damaged. And our liver is responsible for controlling blood sugar 90% of the time. And so if your liver is not functional, then that's when your pancreas has to work harder. And then that's when your beta cells in the pancreas start to die off and you don't make insulin, or the cells don't take insulin in. And so this is where we look at that, we say, man, well, how can we avoid this process? And we got a few more comments in here. So I'll let you.
Michelle just mentioned be careful with the hidden sugars in healthy foods. And I think one thing that's really important because labeling and marketing on our foods has gotten just so creative and I would say it's cool, but at the same time you can have it looks like a healthy snack, something healthy. Always look at the nutritional facts and actually look at what's the sugar content in there, what's the carb content, and the fibers, because that's really going to give you a better indication if you got significant amount of sugars in there. That's like this is not going to be an ideal thing, or a high number of carbs and no z like literally very low amount of fiber, it's not going to be a good source of nutrition. Or at least it's going to be more inflammatory than it will be beneficial for you. And most
Yeah.
of those packaged foods you just got to watch out for in any way, shape, or form. Thanks for sharing that, Michelle.
Yeah, really good point. And then Susan, yours is, Susan says, man, when I gave up salt, I had less swelling and, less cravings for sugar. And so that's great. Cutting out salt, especially if you're eating the sodium chloride, that can be very dangerous. And so you want to get rid of your table salt too. While we're getting rid of stuff, donate all your table salt, the sodium chloride. Replacement with some Redmond salt, some Himalayan sea salt. These are all great. Some of the problems you're going to have in salt is the nanoplastics that can show up in certain salt mines. That's why I try to stick to the Redmond salt, just right here local. And I know the family, the Redmond family. They're patients of ours, and they're great people. So I like to support them. Laura uses
Hate salt.
I hate salt. I was like, she uses the H8 salt. What is that? I hate salt. I love you, Laura. You're great. Okay, so I love salt, Laura. I'll eat yours for you. Yes, and gluten-free foods. Lynn, you bring up a really good point, is you can feel like something super healthy. I'm like, oh, it's gluten-free, Cade. Why are you getting on my case? I mean, I'm eating healthy.
Gluten-free, it's great.
Yeah, and then you look at the label and it's like, man, I'd rather have you eat gluten than all the sugar and the refined processed foods that are in a lot of those. So that's a great point there. If it says paleo, our Paleolithic ancestors would have just gorged themselves on dates and fruits. I mean, they didn't have access to it. So even the paleo food, it can be labeled as paleo, still have a boatload of sugar in it. So yeah, you got to be careful with all this stuff. And then the keto food it can have all these weird sugar alcohols in it that just completely inflame your gut, similar to sugar. So basically, this is just is this turning into like kind of a bitch fest, Kate, or should I move on?
It
It
is.
sounded like it.
We're
Okay.
whining about a lot of things right now.
Let's move on because we're just kind of telling you what is contributing to this massive epidemic in our society. And the best way to fix it is learn how to cook, learn how to eat whole foods again, go back to your garden, get out and hunt, or actually do what I do and what Cade does. And we have brother-in-laws who are hunters, and we have friends who are hunters. And so we just kind of pirate off of them during hunting season. Find yourself a rancher that's got free range. I mean, Ballerina Farms out of Camas have been awesome. And then what's the farmer that we buy a cow from in St. George? What's his farm?
We have Bar10 is a really good one.
R10, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, there's so many resources these days. The farmers markets are going great. So these are awesome things. So if you think about pain, pain is one of the things that gets in the way of our life. And you know that we are experts at treating pain and correcting it very quickly with the treatments we do. But one of the first phases of care, because every patient who comes into the clinic, we take you through 3 phases of care when it comes to pain relief. And we're one of the only clinics in the country that actually runs blood labs on our patients when they come in for pain. And we'll have patients say, well, I just have back pain, Regan. Why do you want to look at my labs? And I want to look at the labs because I want to see what is contributing to the pain, because it's never just that injury, right? There's other things that are going to be contributing. And then that injury can also destabilize your blood sugar. And so that's where we'll go into the next phase of this, which is some timed eating and dehydration. We'll kind of finish up with timed eating and some solutions, but this is where we talk about what pain does to these little glands that sit on top of your kidneys called the adrenals, or the adrenal glands. And the adrenals release catecholamines. And if you guys go back about a month ago or 2 months ago, we talked all about catecholamines. This is your epinephrine and norepinephrine. These are the stress responses. So it's kind of like when you almost wreck on your mountain bike I don't know if Cade ever almost wrecks. I almost wreck every time I follow Cade on the mountain bike, and I get like that kind of adrenaline rush, and then you get all shaky and you're like, ugh. That's catecholamines. That's your adrenals in action. And then what happens to that is when you get that stress hormone that gets increased in your body, then your liver goes into what's called gluconeogenesis. And so this has nothing to do with the matrix, but it's the beginning of new glucose particles because your liver is starting to produce sugar and pushes it into the blood so that you have the ability to outrun the threat. Does that make sense, Cade? So we're cavemen, and now we got a threat. The tiger is coming into the cave and we got to outrun it. We got to fight, flight, or freeze. And if we freeze, we die. So we got to do something. And then that's where the sugar comes in. So the adrenal glands, one of the interesting things is that even if you're not eating sugar, you can still have this fluctuation, massive fluctuation of blood sugar. And I see it all the time. I see patients like, Regan, I can't lose weight. I'm doing everything just right. But the problem is they've never learned to mitigate stress. And so just by being in that chronic stress response, your blood sugar is going to rise all the time. And even if you're not eating sugar, well, your body can take proteins and break those down as sugars. It can actually take your muscles, specifically it starts in the butt and the back of the legs, and it will take those muscles and start breaking them down so that you can feed that monster, the cortisol monster. So stress can be a big part of this. And Kate, have you ever had a stressful day and you come home and you just want to eat something sweet?
Oh yeah.
Or drink something sweet, or just, I just got to relax. Everyone is on my case today. And, we got, patience and, all these things that go on. So,
yeah, that's like I think that's the natural comfort food is like go get some carb rich or sugar rich stuff, get some sweet. That's
right.
like the typical go-to for everyone.
Yeah. And so it's really important to mitigate your stress, because when you have high levels of stress, your liver goes into gluconeogenesis. And then you remember the hormone that comes out once glucose is in the blood. What's the hormone that carries the glucose into the cells? From your
Insulin.
pancreas. Insulin. Yep. And so now that insulin is trying to carry sugar into the cells. And unfortunately, the insulin, it becomes insulin resistance. The cells are just like, man, you're just beating us up. We can't take all the sugar. Like, we don't need it, because Cade's on a desk right now. He's sitting down. He's not even like, we can't burn this off. So you're going to have to put it into a fat cell. And then he gets put into a fat cell, and then the more resistance our cells get, and then the pancreas starts to get burned out. No different than a worker, who's, working in the coal mine, and after 20 years, the black lungs kick in, and then his body starts to break down. And that's what happens to our pancreas. And then our pancreas can't produce the insulin it needs, and that's where diabetes comes in. And all the while you have the stress and the sugar, the excess, refined sugar, carbohydrates, your insulin levels stay high and your pain levels stay high. So all of those areas in the body that have been traumatized, because if you think about it, how many traumas do you have, Cade, as a kid? Can you think of all the injuries that you had where you had, maybe you tackled somebody wrong in football, or you lifted things the wrong way? I mean, how many of those do you think you had from the ages of even like 0 to 18?
Lots.
Like hundreds or thousands.
Yeah.
I mean, just even wrestling with me when I was, Cade having a brother who's 10 years older. Cade got thrown pretty hard. And I just would like to see how much he could take, which was phenomenal.
That was fun.
It was fun while it lasted, but unfortunately, I think I owe you some on your medical bills if we don't keep. That's why it's like, Cade, we got to get into regenerative medicine, because otherwise your body, all those micro traumas that I caused, those are they're going to show up later. They were all good natured, but they're going to come back and get you. So yeah, so these micro traumas in our body, they build up over time. And so what some of the research shows is that we have over 1,000 different traumas to our body by the age of 15. The first trauma is when we're born, especially if you're born through a vaginal canal, your head gets squished. That's why babies look like little aliens when they come out and you're like, whoa, not a cute baby. But then a couple days later, the head starts to form and cutest things on the planet. But man, it's a traumatic experience, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and like Tasha, we were talking to my mother-in-law the other day, and she was saying, yeah, when Tasha was born, and Cade knows Tasha, my sister-in-law, nurse practitioner, she was so big, she was a month late, and her collarbone broke just trying to get through there. So she came out with a fracture,
Oh,
and so all these things build up, and then by the time we have all these malfunctions in our body, our nervous system, our muscles, our blood supply, then we start to have pain conditions that show up later on in life. But usually what feeds that are stress and sugar consumption.
wow. Yeah.
So pretty interesting. So now how does this relate to hydrogen levels and hydration? So the biggest thing that the adrenals do is they regulate the movement of minerals in your body. And so one of the things that you'll find is if you look at the ability for your body to regulate the nutrients, you can look in your labs and look at your anion gap. And Kate, do you remember the anion gap? Have you remember us talking about that number?
Yeah. I,
It's so it's sodium. So sodium plus potassium minus carbon dioxide plus chloride. And so when the anion gap is high, this is when you have metabolic acidosis. So many of you, when we talk about anion gap, we're like, well, your adrenal glands aren't moving the minerals the way that you want to. So you can actually hydrate yourself, and you can do the hydration challenge that we had in our 100-day hack. And that hydration challenge is really powerful. But if you're chronically stressed, you're not going to be moving these electrolytes around. And the anion gap is one of the most important markers that we look at, because if it's high, it shows you've got metabolic acidosis. And Cade, if you think about acidity versus alkalinity in the blood, what are some of the, can you think of any like symptoms that would show up when people get too acidic, or any reason why the blood would be too acidic that you can think of?
so, like, the reasons why would be a lot to do with food and stress levels. So, if you're eating a lot of acidic food, not getting in, um, some alkaline or at least some neutral foods. Um, and then what was the other question? Yes, why? And then
Yeah, and what are some of the reasons? Like, what are some of the contributing factors that? Because that's right. I mean, you mentioned some of the contributing factors of stress and food.
some of the symptoms though would
Oh,
be like acid reflux,
yeah.
lots of pain. Um, I think chronic infections.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, bacteria love that environment. And what we know is in any osteoarthritic joint, for those of you who have osteoarthritis, um, in research, they've actually found that in every single case, you can find Staphylococcus aureus infection in there. So the little bacteria, they climb under this biofilm and they just harbor in your joints. And that's part of what contributes to your pain. And so if you have metabolic acidosis, the bacteria like, oh yeah, let's reproduce, and it's a party in there. And so and then that just inflames things even further. So looking at your anion gap could be really important. It also, if your anion gap's high, and hopefully you guys are pulling out your labs right now, because remember, this is your healthy self and we want you to be owning your health. I mean, that's the primary mindset, is you having health independence. But and we shoot straight. We give you the data that you need so that you don't have to have 100% reliance on anyone. But look at your labs. The other thing it indicates is thiamine. And so thiamine is B1, and it can also indicate some B6 deficiency. But these B vitamins get pulled away when you have too much stress. So when stress levels go up, blood sugar levels go up, then what you start to see is it pulls away the vitamin B. And then that eliminates your ability to methylate. And so, that homocysteine marker, that's that primary inflammatory marker in your body, homocysteine will start to go up. So I know you guys are probably like, this is getting over my head, Reagan. It sounds like I feel like I'm in school. So, well, you are in school because diabetes is a huge problem. So we're trying to get some education out there.
Well, and I think it's interesting how you explain with arthritis, they find these bacterias, and we've like there's plenty of instances. The thing with arthritis is once it gets in there, it's damaging the joint overall. But if you can make some adjustments like in the onset rather than once it's there and it's been prevalent for a while, it's really tough to do anything to reverse arthritis. Like you can do adjustments lifestyle wise, but usually you got to get some innovative treatments as
Yep.
well. But in the beginning stages, if you make some tweaks to change that acid level, get rid of that bacteria in those joints, because there's ways to reverse your arthritis just right there.
Right.
If you would attack it soon enough. Usually, when people are in our clinic, they've had it for a while, and at that point, yes, we want to reduce that acid, but we also got to do some regenerative medicine because there's been so much degeneration.
Right. And this is one of the reasons why we have not ever gone down the pathway of using like adipose derived, stem cells or bone marrow. We just said, well, we don't know how healthy it is in that person's body. And so we've always used these tissue allografts to help influence the environment. And we've seen that's been incredibly effective because we've relied on a source that has not been exposed to all the environmental factors. So,
Right.
so a really critical point there, Cade. I appreciate you making that. And then when we use that, these cells in your knees and in your body have these secretomes like LL37, or we can get the compounding pharmacy to make the peptide LL37, and that breaks up some of these biofilms that are housing the bacterial infections. The other peptide that we use for your joints and for pain are BPC 157. And this is our Wolverine. And Cade and I just did a training for doctors. And I'm having so much fun. We're doing this 5-day peptide training. And so every day at 3 to 3:30, we've been doing this cool webinar. And a lot of cool doctors on there, aren't there, Cade?
Yeah, really cool. No, it's been a lot of fun. Talked about the Wolverine peptide. I like to imagine like you could just be like Wolverine, take bullets and they just like it heals and the bullet pops out like a pimple.
Yeah, it's like drive-by shooting. Bring it on. Yeah, but don't do that if you have, BPC is powerful, but not,
It's not
Wolverine's
quite
kind of
that
like,
extreme, but if you like I'm sure there's a way we could dial it up a notch and some things. It may take a few human experiments, so I guess we'll just have to be our own guinea pigs there.
well, I'll let you go first, kid. That one is, but yeah, BPC. So what it does is it helps with angiogenesis. So you're going to get new blood supply. BPC 157. There is a study where they actually severed the hepatic portal duct in rats, and one group of rats and same genetic lineage and everything. And they expect these rats to live about 7 days when you do that. I mean, they become jaundiced, get really sick and die. And so they said, well, let's see if BPC 157, because it's the Wolverine peptide, let's see if it will help heal the rat's hepatic portal duct. And sure enough, they gave one group of rats, they drank the BPC 157. The other group didn't get any BPC 157. And the group that got the BPC 157, they all survived, whereas the other ones started to die. By the 3-day mark, those rats who had the BPC 157 in their water started to show signs of improvement. So it can do a lot for the connective tissue, the joints. Better blood vessels means more macrophages getting into the area, more immune cells, and then you eradicate that pain and that infection. But if you're eating sugar and your anion gap's not regulated, it's going to be hard to move those nutrients there. But BPC 157 is a good good peptide for you.
Diane just asked a really good question. What does chewing your food properly, how does that affect the body? Been told numerous times how fast I eat um, affects that. And so, yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. So it's, I think a lot of it has to do with how it's breaking down and how that activates your digestive system, right?
That's right. So and we can go through that. I think that's a great question, Diane. So when you chew food, you have an enzyme called amylase. And amylase is this nice enzyme that helps you break down carbohydrates. And so just by chewing your food, it's like pre-digestion. And so when you're eating your food too fast, you're not masticating it is what it's called. And you want your food to be like a mush-like consistency. And then you swallow it. And if you're not chewing it all the way, when you swallow it, it goes into the oven, which is your stomach. And then your stomach has to work really hard to start breaking down the foods more. And the pre-digestion hasn't happened properly. And then you have to cook the food longer. And sometimes you don't have the enzymes to break it down. And that's where you can get acid reflux, or it's a big contributor to SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And so you swallow the food and then it doesn't get fully digested in your stomach. So then it gets putrefied and ends up in your small intestine. And then this putrefied food can harbor infections and bacteria because it's not being properly digested. By the time it hits your large intestine, now you got all these imbalances in your gut. You got dysbiosis, inflammation, leaky gut. All these things can be completely mitigated just by chewing your food. Yes. All right. And that is what I had on my labs, Reagan. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So just slow her down. Diane's a hard charger in life, and we love Diane. So it's really hard when you have so many exciting things going on in life. You don't even want to take time to chew the food, but it's really good. Food's really tasty. You eat less of it when you spend some time chewing it. Awesome. And Susan said, book an appointment with Sarah. She works miracles. Yes, if you're in the Salt Lake area, I love Sarah. Like, she's just phenomenal. We have so many great practitioners. And so not only is Sarah our gut expert there, but she's just really powerful at treating pain and everything else. Okay, so should we continue on our hydration and mineral conversation? Okay, so BPC 157, LL37, these are great ways of correcting pain for good. And then as far as blood sugar goes, some of the things that you want to do is MOD-SC. MOD-SC has been studied, and they actually have done studies on adolescent kids because it's sad to say, but in certain ethnicities like Mexican American, African American, these kids are becoming more and more diabetic. Polynesians, I mean, that's huge. When you go to Hawaii, the obesity rates are out of control because of the American diet, the standard American diet. And so one of the studies that was done with MOD-SC, this is a mitochondrial derived peptide, they found that in every single case of these adolescent kids that took MOD-SC for a period of 3 months, they found that their blood sugar lowered. In many cases, they're able to get off insulin and diabetic medications. Their energy levels improved, and they all lost an average of about 30% of their body weight. So, less circumference in the waist, better fitness levels. I love MOD-SC. So for those of you who have blood sugar dysregulation and think that it may be contributing to your pain, which it would, MOD-SC is going to be one of the great peptides you can do. AOD 9604, that's growth hormone, one of the growth hormone fragment peptides, and that's another good one to regulate the the diabesity that's going on. So those are a couple little tips for you guys, but let's jump into the minerals a little more. So Cade, zinc. What do you know about zinc? What's important about zinc?
Um, what do I know about zinc? I just know it's good. It's great for the immune system. If you don't have enough, you're gonna feel crummy. If you have too much, it could cause some issues too.
There you go. And do you know how to tell if you have a zinc deficiency?
It's your fingernails, right?
Right.
If
And
you
did you know that eating
with
sugar,
like white dots.
white dots, sugar actually depletes zinc in the body. Zinc gets pulled off from regular functions to take
Okay.
care of the blood sugar. What's that?
Said I'm doing okay.
Good. Yep. Everyone look at their fingernails. Okay. So far, so good. Great. Zinc is good for skin integrity. It's critical for tissue growth. So if you want to have healthy joints, you need healthy tissue. Helps with cellular transcription, translation, replication, and it prevents the oxidative damage to cell membranes. It's good for carbohydrate metabolism as well. So zinc is really critical. If you have low zinc, not only, fingernails is just one of the signs, but if you're eating too much sugar, drinking too much coffee, high levels of stress, high levels of alcohol consumption, if you have hypochlorhydria, so you have low stomach acids or you're not chewing your food. So not chewing your food, Diane, can give you a zinc deficiency. All these can be, issues. Oral contraceptives can cause zinc deficiencies, or even high phthalates in your diet. So if you're not cooking your vegetables properly, sometimes you can actually trigger a zinc deficiency. If you're drinking the raw smoothies, that can be a zinc deficiency. And this is one of the things that can really start to affect your body's overall blood sugar, because what we've seen is that when you have inadequate levels of zinc, you can have that loss of taste and smell, which we've all been, acutely aware of with COVID. Like, hey, do you have loss of taste and smell? Failure to thrive, reduced immunity, like Cade mentioned, loss of appetite, impaired nail development. These are all things that will start to affect not only your eyes, but your immune system, your fertility rate. It can lead to skin disorders like acne. So zinc is going to be one of those major nutrients that you need to stabilize the adrenal glands and to diminish pain. And so when we think about hydration, zinc's not necessarily like one of those major electrolytes, but if you don't have enough of it, you can really start to notice a diminishing level of function in your adrenal glands.
Yeah. So do you recommend like just regularly supplementing with zinc, or is that something that you should be able to get through most like good foods?
Well, I would say, just as we always do, is the most expensive supplement you can take is the wrong one. So you may not be zinc depleted. So look at your alk phos levels in your labs.
There we go.
Alkaline phosphatase, and you can get zinc. It's in oysters, seafood, dairy. So maybe the goat yogurt is my favorite. You can get it in certain fruits. I believe pineapple is the highest source of zinc. Might be wrong on that. Pumpkin seeds I know are high in zinc. Certain meats are very high in zinc too.
Nice. All right. Had a question come in. Why do I have a craving for bread at breakfast?
Probably because bread is super tasty. I mean, who doesn't who doesn't want
Who
bread
doesn't,
all the time, right?
who doesn't want to eat a good loaf of bread?
As long as it's just a little under a loaf, you're fine. I mean,
That's my problem. So for those of you that don't know Reagan's wife, Jess, she cooks some amazing like bread, really clean flour, like sources it beautifully. And if I ever go up there and she's got some bread, sometimes that is my cheat day, where I
man,
just eat a whole loaf to myself, or at least I could if Reagan would let me.
yeah, I'm usually like, hey, bud, my wife put a lot of work into this, and so she may want a slice, at least save her one. Yeah, but no, my wife makes some great sourdough bread. She uses kamut flour, which is awesome. So there's really good ways. So bread, one of the things you want to look at. So here's the answer that I could, I don't know who it was that asked that, but What's the name, Cade?
It was Judy.
Judy. Okay. So Judy, welcome to the show. Good to have you on here. Judy, the biggest thing that you want to look at is in the morning, before you eat the bread, or if you're craving carbohydrates or some quick energy, that might be a sign of exactly what we're talking about, which are electrolyte deficiencies. And so some of your core electrolytes are not being met. So I would say drink a glass the lemon juice, unsweetened cranberry juice, and some apple cider vinegar in a glass of water. Or if you have like our keto blend, don't get electrolytes that have sugar in it. That's, if you see sugar, then you're like, okay, you're on the wrong track. But that would be one of the reasons. The other reason that we see where you crave these carbohydrates in the morning is because your cortisol levels are higher when you wake up. And so when your cortisol, and this is a good thing, actually, it's good to wake up with an appetite. It means you got a strong liver and your adrenals are secreting cortisol at the right time. So don't get all like, don't feel like it's necessarily a bad thing. And I wasn't joking. Bread's good, and especially if someone else next to you is. Sometimes my wife will eat some of her bread in the morning, and I'm like, I'm not eating yet, so I have to get outside of the house because the smell is intoxicating. So
Well, yeah, and is there, so there's a question that came in from Michelle. What's the correlation with neurological habits and cravings? Like, I have to have bread at breakfast. Bread, I remember, I don't think it was from you, but isn't there something how, whether it's bread or carbs or sugar, it's like, it's got
yeah,
a, almost an opiate, like
it
there's
does. There you go. Yeah. It works on the opiate receptors in the brain, gluten specifically. And when you mix gluten and dairy together, it's like taking a little hit of morphine. So, Michelle, from a neurological perspective, a psychological perspective, like it's an opiate addiction, which we started off talking about, this opiate crisis. So, maybe it's a bread crisis.
that that could be leading to other things. It's a gateway.
It's a gateway drug, but man, we'd rather have you eat bread than opiates. So don't get us wrong, but the bread, I think just back to Judy's point, try some hydration first thing. Make sure at night, nighttime is the best time to eat carbohydrates. So try to eat that piece of bread at night, because your cortisol levels, when they're high, you're not going to be as insulin sensitive. And so that insulin is going to look at the sugar, and it's going to cause a little more stress in your body when you eat carbs in the morning. So push your carbs out at night, and then eating some carbs, like 50 to 100 grams of carbs before you go to bed, not right before, but 3 hours before you go to sleep, can really just mitigate that craving altogether. Um,
Yeah, I like the hydration challenge for me was awesome because I realized I just felt so much better in the morning when I woke up. So much better energy. My cravings weren't out of whack, out of control. And that hydration thing is great. I think the other thing is like you can get some good fats in the morning
yeah.
that helps stave off those cravings as well, like avocado with some
Hmm.
salt.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Something like that will help with those cravings, because if you start the day off like with bread or something that's going to turn into sugar, so that
Yep.
the bread is ultimately like that carb's going to get digested into a sugar. So you're going to be running on sugar as an energy source, as opposed to if you can get your body running on fat, your brain's going to feel better, your joints are going to feel better, you'll just feel a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you don't feel better, then just eat the damn bread. I mean, all right. Okay. Okay, no, joking, but eat some healthy bread.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, and Ray says, I thought avocados are best in the evening. Avocados are great evening and morning. You can eat them all the time. And Ray, they're good. The Aztecs, they looked at avocado trees and they called them testicle trees. So really good for the reproductive system, but they have tryptophan in it, so it helps you sleep great at night. So really good there. And Ann says she used to pound whole wheat bread like sugar in college. But then she realized it's, it had preservatives and molasses that give it that brown color, not real bread. So be careful with the whole wheat. I would be skeptical when you see a bread that says whole wheat, because, oh, I'm eating whole wheat. Well, we don't know what that means. And so that's a really good insight, Ann. Ann says she loves sweet potatoes, especially the purple and Japanese. Oh, those are so good. She recently tried Trader Joe's butternut squash pre-cut crinkle fries. Just roast those and they taste sweet like potato fries, but you are in control of the oils and seasoning. I love that. So you could even put it in an
Butternut
air fryer.
squash. That's a good. I've never even thought of trying that.
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
that is awesome. Hey, and Joan had a new grandbaby yesterday. Congratulations, Joan. Woo! That's so exciting.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Congratulations.
Okay, so let's I wanted to finish off. Magnesium is the other mineral that really helps the adrenals, helps stabilize these sugar cravings, and great for pain levels. And then we're going to jump in, and we got about 4 minutes left. But magnesium is a key component. If you're in front of a computer at all, like right now, your body needs more magnesium. If you drink coffee, you need more magnesium. Tea, you need more magnesium. So magnesium helps with the smooth muscle relaxation. It helps stabilize your blood sugar levels, and it decreases blood coagulation. So in Chinese medicine, blood stasis is what causes the pain in our body. And so just by getting enough hydration, enough magnesium, and remember hydration, the minimal amount is half your body weight in ounces of water, but that's water with electrolytes in it. If you're just drinking plain water, you could actually be doing more harm than good. Magnesium helps with your heart, with protein synthesis. And so it's one of the best things you can do to help stabilize this pain level in your body. So try magnesium next time you're in pain. And then let's look at time restricted eating, Cade. So now that we've given people kind of the science behind it, we've talked about some strategies as well and some tactics. What is a good window of time for people to eat? Let's just say, like, man, I can't follow this diet totally, but can you give me something easier?
Yeah, so my strategy is, I sometimes work a little later. I work with, or I get home and my kids are up later, especially in the summer. So
Hmm.
my strategy is I try to start eating as late as possible. So I'm like 10 or 11. So my window is like 10 to 7 is my ideal time. 'Cause
Nice.
Abby's at dance, and so we sometimes are eating a lot later than I'd like to. So that's what I like, is like an 8 hour window, especially if I'm trying to trim up, cut some weight. That's my preferred time. Or max is like 10 hours.
Got it. Love it. And so, one of the time restricted eating books that I'd recommend for everyone is The Circadian Code by Sachin Panda. And what he found is that even if you restrict your eating to 12 hours, you're going to have a diminishing of every chronic disease known. And then if you can go even more, like Cade's doing, like a 9 to 10 hour window that you eat and then you fast the rest of the time. You can drink water still and you can have electrolytes, but you don't really want to do anything that's going to trigger that metabolic response. When you eat a full meal, you activate every single metabolic activity in your body. When you eat something small, like a little snack, you're opening up a couple of the highways in between meals. But ideally at night, you stop eating at a certain time, 3 hours before bed, and you don't touch anything until the next day when you're ready to start eating again. And that's time restricted eating, and it can be really helpful. For those of you who need help with blood sugar regulation, we talked about a couple peptides, the MOD-SC, the AOD 9604, even the CJC ipamorelin, but a great formula from the Smart Medicine is Energy Multiplier. And Cade, you've used this, I've used this for
Yeah.
years. I helped formulate this.
Right
Oh,
there.
you've got it right there. Yeah, it's in our Einstein's medicine that the Albert Einstein School of Medicine asked us to change it to something else. And so we changed it to the Smart Medicine. But it's got berberine, cinnamon extract, banaba extract, gymnema, which helps with sugar cravings, kudzu, fenugreek, and American ginseng. Is just one of the best formulas that I know of, that you can use to stabilize blood sugar. So
yeah, and you can get that at thesmartmedicine.com, or you can obviously pick it up at one of our clinics. But if you're, we have a lot of people from other places in the world, so yeah, take a look at thesmartmedicine.com. There there some of the functionality is a little funky right now. We're working on a website overhaul, so if you have any problems with it, send me an email at cade@gowellness.com. CADE. Awesome. Well, Reagan, that was a great show. Hopefully you guys learned some really cool stuff on hydration, ways to get out of pain, and a fun conversation. So we'll see you guys same time, same place next week. Have an amazing week. Love you, everybody. And happy Father's Day. Fathers
yeah,
this weekend.
awesome. See
We'll
you
see
guys.
you.